Hello and welcome to Youngstown Click, guys. I am so excited. I just scarfed down a peanut butter and honey sandwich so that I could get on here while Rachel was available and do a What Would Rachel Say episode, because I have some questions that have been asked, and Rachel is here with us to answer those as well as share whatever else is on her mind. So without further ado, we're going to get right into this. Guys, just real quick, this episode is called What Would Rachel Say? If you have questions, Rachel is a licensed counselor, therapist, does anger management, all kinds of stuff. I won't bore you with all the details. I'll let her share that at another time. But she's also my big sister. And let me tell you, my whole life I've been asking her advice. And now is your chance to ask her advice. There's no strings attached. I won't mention your names. So direct message me your questions or post them as a comment, whatever you want, and we're going to be asking that. And then when we get the website up, she'll also have her own little advice column there. So you guys, this is going to be a fun thing. But these particular questions stood out to me, and so these are the two that I want to get started with. So first of all, welcome, Rachel, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to get right to this. The first question is about gaslighting, and I'm not sure how many of you have heard about this. This is something kind of new to me, but the question is, what can you tell me about gaslighting, and how do I know if I'm being gaslighted? I don't know if that's the proper way to say it, but basically talk to us about gaslighting. And apparently they want to know how they know it's happening to them, I guess. Sometimes just go ahead and explain that to us, and anything that would
Okay.
help.
So I think it was like in the 30s or something. There was a movie that came out that was called Gaslight. And it was about this woman who married this man who made her think she was going crazy. And he made everybody else around her think she was going crazy. And she questioned her sanity. He was getting ready to have her committed. And the whole time he was trying to steal from her. And he went through elaborate lengths to convince her that she was going crazy.
Oh my.
So this is where the term comes from, is from that movie, because it was about a gaslight that was flickering, and he would pretend like it wasn't flickering. And so when we're in a relationship or a situation where we question our sanity, or we don't think that something is the way that we perceive it to be, then potentially we are being gaslighted by someone. And so whenever someone seeks to convince us of something that's not true, that's a form of gaslighting. And so that often happens in abusive relationships or in cults, with narcissistic people, those types of situations. That's where gaslighting often occurs. So if you have this sense of like, my logic, or the logic that people explain to me says that I should feel great and happy, but I feel like something's wrong, maybe something's wrong with me, most likely there is a potential that you're being gaslighted in that situation or that relationship.
Wow. Okay, so then if somebody finds themselves in this kind of situation, what can they do about it? I mean, I guess the idea then for somebody being gaslit is that they lose their confidence and they lose the ability to think that their own thoughts are accurate. So
Right, they stop trusting themselves, and it decreases their sense of self. Their self-esteem is lowered. So what can be helpful is to find a trusted friend, someone that you do trust, that is unbiased, who will help anchor you in the truth, in reality, and kind of can be that person to say, no, that you shouldn't be treated that way, or that is not okay for that to happen. And kind of help orient you to figure out which way is up and which way is down. Because often in intense and toxic relationships, people can get lost and not know, they can feel like they're in a roller coaster or a tornado or something, that they're, or washing machine. People have explained it different ways, where they don't know what's up and what's down.
Oh my goodness. That
So,
reminds me, I saw a movie. I forget what movie it was, but it was somebody, and I take a deep breath even thinking about it, because it was somebody, they were under the water and they got all turned around and they didn't know, they couldn't tell which way was up the surface. And that's kind of the picture I'm getting as you're talking, which makes me like, I can't, to feel it
often,
inside. Oh,
and that's a really great metaphor, because in that situation, not panicking and being able to rest for a moment, and you will naturally float towards the top, and you'll know which direction is up. And
okay.
that's exactly what can be helpful as well in that kind of situation, is being able to take a deep breath and to sit and to just be, and to just, which is really difficult to do when you're feeling panicky and like, I have to do something now, or I don't know what's wrong, and like your stomach is churning and your head is spinning, and like you feel like, I have to figure this out, or I have to do something. It can be really difficult to just stop and breathe and just be.
Okay.
But
Okay.
sometimes that's the best thing you can do in those kind of situations, to help reconnect with yourself and learn to listen. Our bodies are very wise, and our bodies a lot of times tell us things that we don't notice or pay attention to. So a lot of times, if you're paying attention, you'll notice when certain people will come around you, your body tenses. And so sometimes we ignore that, and we don't realize, we override that in our mind, and we're like, oh, this is a fun person, or we like them for this reason, or they help us out in this way. We justify like why we spend time with this person, when our bodies are telling us all along, this person is not safe. I feel tense. I
Wow.
don't feel safe around this person. And then we end up getting hurt by that person and down the road, when if we would have just listened to our bodies in the beginning, we would have maybe had our guards up more and not allowed ourselves to be taken advantage of.
Wow, that is so good, guys. I hope that that answered your question. That, and if it didn't, or if it led to more questions, please feel free to message me, and we will definitely make sure that we continue this conversation. I know that gaslighting is very close. I think Rachel actually mentioned it to narcissism. And so if that's also something that you have questions about, we can get to that. I want to go on to the second question, is there anything else about gaslighting that you feel like, any last thoughts about that before we go to the next question?
Just that gaslighting is really a big term, and a lot of times people use that to mean a lot of different things. And so, right, if people need clarification about anything, then definitely asking is the way to go.
Okay. All right. Good. Okay. So the second question is actually one that I'm sure that we can all kind of relate to. Um, it's, I do so much for everybody around me, and I'm trying to stay sane in all this, but yeah, I feel like I'm still failing. So at the end of the day, I'm busy, but I don't feel fulfilled. Help. That's kind of deep, actually. I mean, I know that I felt like that before, you know what I mean? Where I'm
Mm-hmm.
just running, almost like maintaining my life, but I don't feel like I'm living my life. And
Mm-hmm.
so what do you have to answer that question?
Well, that is a recipe for feeling like a failure. Is, if you feel like a failure, the question is, what is success? What does success look like? And so, if success is making everybody in my life happy, I'm predestined for failure, because that's impossible. I'm not going to always make everyone happy. So sometimes we fall into that trap, and we don't think about our goals. We don't think about our definition of success. So when we stop and we think, what's important to me? What are my goals? What are my values? Then we can set ourselves up to be successful in those things, and be okay with people being upset with us. That is one of the great tragedies, I think, that exists a lot of times when people who come into my office is they never learn to be okay with people being upset with them.
Oh, that is
Because
hard. It's so hard.
so much of parenting is revolved around making the parent happy and making them happy. And so a lot of times parents just ride that and they play guilt trips or they use that as a form of manipulating behavior for a good cause, like they want their kids to do the right thing or to do whatever. But what it does is it programs us to always be looking for approval from others and to need others to be happy with us. And so as we grow and mature and become adults, we need to grow out of this and be okay with upsetting people sometimes, if that's the right thing to do. Not that we go around and purposely upset people,
Right.
but people will be upset, and us knowing how to handle that without getting defensive or feeling like that's a blow to our self-esteem that somebody's upset. How dare they be upset with me?
Right. Very definitive.
I'm doing the right thing. I am right in my choices, and nobody needs to be upset with me. Oh no, people can be upset with you, and you're still doing the right thing. That's okay. People will they have the right to be upset with you, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And so sometimes having that mantra, that person will probably be upset with me, and that's okay. Telling ourselves that that's okay can kind of help calm ourselves so that we don't get worked up that somebody is upset with us. It's okay that they're upset with us. It doesn't mean anything about who I am or my worth as a person or my intentions or my value. Right. They're upset. That's all it means, is that they're upset. That has something to do with them or their perception.
Okay. Now, what would you say to the person who would think that, I mean, in a way, people who are stuck in this usually are not very selfish people, right? So that could sound like a very selfish thing to do when they feel like everybody else around them needs them. And so what would you, I mean, how, address that for me. Like, how would somebody who wants to be giving, who wants to be that kind of person, they don't want to stop being that kind of person. They don't want to, in their mind, be selfish. So address that conflict, I guess.
So I think the person has to ask themselves, do I not want to be perceived as selfish? Is this my goal? Or do I truly want to be generous and giving to others?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Because if I don't want to be perceived as selfish, then I'm going to constantly be taken advantage of by the people in my life. Even if they don't intend to, they're just going to get used to me always doing these things, and they'll be upset with me when I don't. And then that's going to play into that cycle. Somebody's upset with me. Oh no, and now I got to make them happy.
Yeah.
So if my goal is to truly be giving, then let's think about it in terms of like money. Okay. If I want to be perceived as a giving person and not selfish, then once I've used up all my money, I'm also going to use my credit cards, and I'm going to go into debt, and I'm going to do all this stuff to not be perceived as selfish, to be perceived a certain way. But if I want to be a true giver, then I'm going to think about my finances long term, and I'm going to give what I can. And I'm going to also try to save and invest and build wealth along the way so that I have more to give in the future. And so then it's true generosity that I can feel good about. People might not always be happy with my choices, but no matter how hard I try, people are not always going to be happy with my choices.
That is so true. So true.
When I accept that reality, when I accept that people aren't always going to be okay with my choices, then I can stop and think, what is the best choice in this situation? What is going to do the most good? Or what are my values? What's important to me? And that's going to help me feel satisfied.
Okay.
So as long as I don't know how to figure that out for myself, then I'm going to be looking to others to give that to me. And then I feel powerless in my life because I'm dependent on others to make me feel a certain way.
Oh, I can't even imagine being stuck in that cycle of just being giving your money, giving your time, giving your energy, giving your love, and still feeling unsatisfied, still feeling like it's not enough. Man, like if that's where you find yourself, know that that is not the way that your life is supposed to be lived. That is not your purpose, is to get used to that extent. Your purpose is to live and to be generous and to give and to love out of your heart, not out of trying to prove yourself to anybody or prove something. Man, like this is so good. Anything, go ahead, Rachel.
If it's true generosity, it'll bring me joy. If I'm not feeling joyful in the giving, it's not true generosity. It's obligation, it's like expectation, it's something else, but it's not true generosity. And only I really know what that is. And so that sometimes takes time, again, to sit and be still, and to check in with myself to say, how do I really feel about this? Is something bothering me about this? What is that? And for the people who are caught in that trap of giving, and constantly being exhausted and spent up, I think taking a hard look at
Are you there?
I think we got disconnected. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we did. I froze for a second. So go ahead. I heard you, but your video stopped. So sorry, everybody, if that happened to you. Okay, go ahead.
So, but asking oneself, what am I getting from this? Because obviously I am getting something, or else I wouldn't keep doing it. It's paying off for me in some way. So what is the payoff? It's obviously not paying off in a way where I feel joyful and energetic and, you know, I have an abundant life that we were created for. So what is my payoff? Is it that I get to feel justified in holding on resentments to somebody? Or is it that like I get to be the good person? Like, is that my payoff? And starting to examine those hard things. So sometimes when we are the givers and we are the one that's sacrificing and we are the one that's like the victims in situations, it's hard to question the motives of somebody in that situation, because there is a need for empathy there and there is a need for compassion.
Yeah.
But sometimes we subconsciously put ourselves in that place so that our motives aren't questioned. So it's hard to look at those parts of ourselves that we have been hiding for a long time. And everybody has those parts of themselves that were rejected in their childhood at some point by somebody. And so a lot of times we end up rejecting those parts of ourselves as well. And then we have a lot of times the soft and tender, innocent part of ourselves that we often have learned that we need to not show to the world and that we need to protect. And so instead of developing good boundaries where I can unlock the door and open it and invite you in or not, we build these like huge walls around it.
Right.
Well, and so we have these barriers that somehow only let the wrong people through. And so, so there's the difference between a wall and a boundary.
Okay. So we have about 9 minutes left to this interview. It's going to cut us off, but
okay.
let's give this person maybe some homework, something that they could start. So maybe, and I know I'm putting you on the spot, so maybe like a 1, 2, 3, like write out what it is that frustrates you maybe, and then 2, ask yourself why you do it, and then I don't know, give them something that they can do today to say, okay, this is the start of me taking my life back. I know I'm putting you on a spot, so just give them somewhere to start.
Okay, so what I would suggest actually is first taking 5 minutes every day to just breathe and pay attention to what's in your body, what's happening around you, but being in this moment. And the breath focusing on your breath is a great way to learn how to do that, because every breath you take is the breath that you're taking right now. It's not a breath that you took 2 seconds ago. It's not a breath that you're taking in the future. It's a breath that you're taking right now. And so
Okay,
that's
so
a
let's
great
just stop
way.
for a second. Let's just breathe. All right, now everybody do this with us. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Wow. Okay, there you go. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
So, and also, when we read, the story of creation, when God formed man, he breathed into him. And so one way of looking at it is it's the first gift that God gave us was his breath.
Wow.
And so,
Wow.
I like to start with focusing on your breath, taking deep breaths, which is also good for your nervous system, helps relax you, activates the parasympathetic response. And so that can be really helpful to just be grounding and to be present and to slow things down and slow our minds down. Now, if you take 5 minutes and you're focusing on taking deep breaths and being in the moment and being aware of sights and sounds and sensations and emotions that come up, all of that's good, but your mind will wander. Like if you set the timer for 5 minutes, like when your mind wanders, that's not a bad thing. That's human. You're a human and your mind's doing what a mind does. It makes thoughts and takes you down rabbit trails. So the thing is when you notice that that's happening and you become aware of it, you're like, oh, my mind wandered. Okay. And then come back to the breath and breathing and being present in the moment. And the more that you catch yourself in your mind wandering, the more opportunities you have to strengthen that skill, that muscle of coming back to the moment. And so that would be the first thing I would suggest, is for everybody, pretty much no matter what the frustration or the situation is, because sometimes we keep ourselves so busy that we're not aware of the obvious. And so when we can become present in the moment, we can be more aware of what's right in front of our face. And that in itself will help us make better decisions, more educated and informed decisions. So that's where I would start. Also, a lot of times when we're so busy running around, we're not giving ourselves enough attention and paying enough attention to our thoughts and feelings and whatnot. And so doing a form of journaling can be helpful as well. And for a lot of people, expressive writing can be helpful. So that's ideally in the morning and in the evening, but anytime can be good. That when you think about it or you're feeling overwhelmed, and that's just expressive writing is just pretty much just sitting down and doing a mind dump on a piece of paper for 10 to 15 minutes, just writing whatever comes to mind. And even if it's the same phrase over and over, even swear words, like anything is fine. You can interrupt yourself. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to be grammatically correct. Just dumping it all out. And then after the timer goes off, after 10 to 15 minutes, just ripping it up and throwing it in the trash. Or some people like to burn it or whatever.
I will say this I used to have a bad habit of, when I was upset, texting the person I was upset with. And one day I forget if it was something you said, or I just, I had caused some hurt feelings through texting. And so I was so angry and I was so upset, and I had a legitimate reason to be. I mean, it wasn't like I was just having a bad day. Like I would, these things were really bothering me. And so instead of texting, I got a notebook and just started writing the text, right? Because if anything, it was just a rough draft, right? But I'm telling you, being able to get that out without being afraid of hurting their feelings, without editing myself, without thinking, how's this going to come across, without thinking, anything. And I just got it out was such a great thing. And it saved me from sending a very hurtful text while allowing me to express how I felt and not hold it in and not feel like I wasn't able to have a voice and so on and so forth. So a little bit in a different way, I have experienced this, and man, like, I'm so glad. It has saved me so many different times. I'd be upset or frustrated and I'd write out how I felt, or I'd write out a prayer like, God, da 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 da, like but it got it out. And next thing you know, you could see the progression where my heart begins to soften and I begin to see things more clearly. So we have 3 minutes left. So go ahead and round us up and then we'll say goodbye.
Okay. But yes, getting it out is important. And the expressive writing, if you start a daily habit of just doing that for like a few minutes every day, doesn't even 5 minutes, can be like eliminating for our soul, like proper elimination. So we don't get emotionally constipated.
Right. Yeah, right.
So we don't get backed up and toxic. So, but people don't like journaling. They can, they can go for a jog or they can put music on and dance it out. Like the thing is to get it out every day in a way that's not harmful. If you can do it in a way that's helpful, that's good. But at minimum, if you get it out in a way that's not harmful to you or somebody else, that's a bonus, because otherwise it gets backed up and then it becomes toxic to everyone.
Yeah.
And then the third thing I would say is to start noticing the things that you're doing right and documenting that in some way, whether you write it down or you do a video log or you share it. You have we like with our family, sometimes we have a victory we share our victories for the day. Right. And so the things that you're doing right and being able to pat yourself on the back and say, good for me. Or even if you just don't write it down, but you just take the time to say, you know what, this morning when my alarm went off, I did not hit the snooze. Good for me.
I have yet to say that one. Listen, guys, we are 10 seconds away. Tune in next time. Send me your questions, and thank you for being part of what makes Youngstown click. You are great. You are awesome. You are not alone, and you are part of something big. Some of the greatest, yes, I love that. Some of the greatest people on earth. We love you, and send us your questions. All right. Talk to you later.